What about Manchester United, Stuart? Are they really about to blow top four?
No, I don't think so. Their away form's been rather poor this year, and if they do flirt with dropping out the top four, it's their away form that's cost them. But I think they've got enough of a buffer at this moment in time to stay in the top four. I really do. Brighton have got some tough games as well.
Martin Keown insists they'll blow it.
Well, Martin knows more than I do, so maybe he's right. But listen, time will tell. Brighton have got some tough games, but those tough games might not be as tough as you think. Manchester City, second to last game. If City have won the league by then, maybe the game won't be as tough as it looks at this moment. I hope that both Brighton are going for Europe and City still need to win it to win the league.
I mean, Manchester United, when you look at it, Simon, have still taken just 1 point from the last 8 games against the Premier League's top 9.
Yeah.
So when they're up against others around them, it seems they misfire. And certainly, you know, I was listening to Stuart earlier on this morning when you were sitting in the office, Stuart, tell me about the second half, and it was all Brighton, right? It was mostly all Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, United are the best counter-attack team in the country. It was Liverpool last year. Manchester United is now, especially with Rashford in the ranks. But Brighton had a mentality, I think, that they felt as though they had to win this game. And they kept pushing and pushing in the second half. I
mean, it would have been a little bit of divine retribution for them, wouldn't it, after an FA Cup semi-final, where they will feel harshly done by to lose in a penalty shootout, which when we can debate the fact that they probably had the better chances during the semi-final. Look, Man United, for me, 4 points clear of Liverpool with a game in hand. Even if they only get a point out of that game, even if we were to lose that game in hand, it's still an ask in 4 or 5 games for another side to get 5 more points than your opposition. So I think Man United will get into the Champions League spots. And then it will become about if they can win an FA Cup, because they'll be desperate to win that FA Cup, because if the Man City side get past Real Madrid and get into a Champions League final, the last thing Manchester United are going to want to be is a facilitator of a treble. So So if they were to come out of this season with Ten Hag winning a League Cup, perhaps winning an FA Cup final, although I can't see it, and finishing in the Champions League, I wonder what people will say about that report card for Ten Hag, coming from the position where they came back from last year when they were in a little bit of disarray and all the carnage around Ralf Rangnick and his complete and utter exercise in futility in terms of his appointments. I think most sensible people would say that's not a bad starting point. You've now got yourself a platform
to win the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup.
Well, even to win the Carabao Cup, to be in an FA Cup final, not necessarily win it because I don't think they will, and to finish 4th in the league is a trophy. It's not a great haul, but it's not bad from where I think the position they were coming from.
I think they're in credit already. I think picking up silverware and getting to the FA Cup final, even if they dropped out the Champions League, which I don't think they will, I still think they're in credit from where they've been.
Okay. I wonder if Jonathan, the big Manchester United fan who's called in, I wonder if you'd agree with that. Manchester United, according to Stuart here, Jonathan, already in credit. A trophy in the bag and in the final of another. What's your take on it?
Yeah, 100% disagree. 100% disagree, guys. I mean, I used to come on back in the days of Ollie Gunnar and debate, Ollie, get your coat with Simon. But look, there's probably going to be Chelsea fans, Spurs fans listening to me thinking, what is he going on about when you think of the rubbish they're having to see? Look, everyone's going on about top 4 Carabao Cup. I am so envious of Brighton last night. What a well-run club. They've got players like McAllister, Casado, who would walk into our team. They would crawl into United's first 11. Rashford has a run of half a dozen games when everyone thinks he's Lewandowski. Anthony was paid $80 million for a £40 million player. Sancho, someone told me he actually came on as a sub last night. I can't believe we've been chasing this guy. He's weak, he's scared. Casemiro, half the player he was before all these yellow cards. And if people think that getting our pants pulled down by Daniel Levy, paying $100 million for Kane, that will get dragged out until the end of the transfer window is going to solve anything, I think they're miles away. I actually think we've got no chance of getting top 4 next season.
Wow. I mean, that is one pessimistic outlook. I mean, Jonathan, you're in an FA Cup final. You've won the Carabao Cup. And his first year, Mourinho won 2 trophies. And United fans were jubilant about that. But you wouldn't be, even if you win the FA Cup.
If we won the FA Cup and the League Cup, I think it's a good season.
Surely, yeah.
I can't mask the fact that Brighton, and I know you say, oh, they're not little Brighton anymore. They're up with the big boys now. They've played us off the park. They played us off the park in the Cup semi. We're getting played off the park by teams that shouldn't be playing us off the park. The mentality, you went on about it, the away form, that is past embarrassing. It only goes to show there's a lack of, you know what, a lack of minerals away from home.
I honestly think you're comparing Manchester United to what Alex basically built. And I don't think that's the Manchester United anymore. I'm looking at Manchester United and saying, this season you're in a Champions League place and it's yours to stay there. You've won silverware and you're in the other major cup final in this country. I look at that as an outsider and say, that is a good season.
But you're not having it, Jonathan, because you think, looking around the place at the moment, you're nowhere near where you should be.
100%. Stuart, I'm not comparing it to Fergie. Fergie was just one on his own. But I'm just comparing it to the fact I think we've got a great man in charge at the moment. But it all stems back to what's going on at the club. They can't work out who they want to sell it to. That's going to drag on. That's going to impact summer transfers. And in the end, we're falling further and further behind. You might think, well, you can't be falling further and further behind if you've got 2 cups in the bag. But, you know, a lot of my friends are thinking, God help us, if City bang one in the cup final in the first 5 minutes, it could be a cricket score. So, look, we live in hope.
Wow. I mean, that's
like it.
That is quite a call, is it not? I mean, well, there's a Manchester United supporter, like it or not, who says, yeah, fine, I'm not happy, and we want better. And my God, he said it as it was, Simon, and that's what he firmly believes he's entitled to think it.
Well, of course he is, and some of the observations he makes are probably correct. When you take it down to macro level and you start analysing some of the players' performances and some of the players that he talks about, I wouldn't disagree with some of his observations. I do think that they're in better fettle than they've been for some time. And if he likes Ten Hag and believes that Ten Hag is doing a good job, then he's got to believe that Ten Hag will continue to do that good job and get better opportunities. I don't think whether they sell this football club between now and the summer or they don't will affect their transfer policy. I think that they will have revenues.
How can it not?
Well, why would it? Manchester United is a going concern. It goes on.
Well, look at Chelsea's was immediately affected by the new ownership.
Sure, they spent twice the money because they went out.
That's what I mean.
They went out and did ridiculous things. But if Abramovich had been still there, I mean, the Chelsea example it's not a good example because the club was sanctioned. The owner was moved out of the place and there was nobody there. Right. So with that one, it's a But Chelsea, if Abramovich had still been in place and was trying to sell the football club and hadn't been sanctioned, they probably would have still spent the same money. Man United spend 150, 200 million pounds every window. It's part of their business model. It's part of what they do. It's part of their provisions. It's part of their budgeting. It's part of what they'll need to do. So by definition, if they spend money in the summer in lieu of a sale, then they'll price it into the sale. So
yeah, but by midsummer, Simon, if the Glazers have 1 foot out of Old Trafford, they're not going to throw a lot of money at a transfer market that they're maybe not going to see out themselves.
But let's pare that back for a second. Everybody knows they don't throw any money at it. They use the club's money. So they won't be throwing any of their own money at it because they never have done. So they'll have the revenues that the club has. All the money that Man United have ever spent has either been money that they've borrowed and loaded onto the club, which is a big source of rancour for the fans, or out of the club's own generative income.
So you don't think it's make a blind bit of difference? I don't
think it will make a blind bit of difference. Ten Hag is the manager. Unless we're talking about Ten Hag being changed as manager, and I know there's a lot of narrative being built up, Ten Hag doesn't know where his transfer budget is going to be for next summer, and all that sort of stuff will be building up behind the scenes. My view of a takeover of the size of Manchester United and the scale of Manchester United, which probably won't happen anyway, will be based upon business as usual. Anything that needs to be bought will be priced into the equation, and if anything more is spent than necessarily would have been spent as a matter of course with Glazers' ownership, it'll just be priced into the new purchaser coming in. So It will not stop United. Okay. And United being their biggest disappointment has got to be getting knocked out to Sevilla. That's where you look at their season and go, oh, a little bit too much of that going on. Yeah. A little bit too much of that going on.
Even this early in the show on a Friday morning, the number of messages coming in, honestly, I'll try and get through as many as I can. Keep them coming. You know the number, 81089.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.